Okay. And then I'm going to tweet it out again too. So, welcome to the Dr. Anita Show. I'm so happy to have you here. My name is Anita Marcazzani. I am a licensed psychologist. I work now as an executive coach. I work with business owners, leaders, and professionals, and just everyday people to help them reduce overwhelm, reduce stress, and move forward and upward in their lives and their careers. So I'm very honored to be speaking with you today about a topic that's very important. And my shows always start at 2 p.m. Eastern on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I usually log on about 10 minutes early. And the reason I log on early is to deal with any technical glitches that seem to plague me throughout my life. But it gives me an opportunity to start talking to people and finding out things. And I was just mentioning that oftentimes I give presentations in the community, or I'm asked to give a workshop or a seminar. And one of the most common topics that I'm asked to speak on is work-life balance. It is a big deal. There are websites, blogs, magazines, books that are dedicated to helping people try to figure this out. The whole Working Mother magazine, that's essentially what it's all about, to help working moms figure this out. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is not specific to women. It's men have problems with this too. So I don't want people to feel like this is only a female issue. It absolutely is not. It is something that everybody grapples with. Now, it's probably true that women might grapple with it a little bit more, or at least feel more of a heaviness around the idea of it, because women, for the most part, are the primary caregivers for the children in a family, and that's hard. It's hard to be a mom. Okay, I always tell people, because I've been working now as a coach for a long time, and I tell people that being a mom it's really hard. And so when you try to do anything else on top of being a mom, it just gets really difficult, extremely challenging. So if you're a stay-at-home mom and you decide you want to start exercising on a regular basis, you just want to throw something else on top of just being a stay-at-home mom. Wow, that gets complicated. If you want to start a business, if you want to work outside the home, get a job, in addition to being a mom, it's really complicated and it's not because work is hard or because taking care of yourself is hard. It's because being a mom is so difficult, and not in a bad way. It just is so many challenges to really do it well. So I think women probably struggle with this a little bit more than men do, but I know a lot of men though who have this issue as well. So, all right, let's get started. All right, so I want you to think about too what balance means to you. When you hear about the idea of work-life balance, what does that mean to you? And I apologize if you can hear my dogs in the background. We just had snow, so there's all kinds of stuff going on outside. People are shoveling and, anyway, that just gets them all wound up. So I apologize for the barking dogs in the background. But so what does it mean to you personally to have work-life balance? And how do you know that you're not in balance? Like what symptoms or what signs appear in your life that are kind of like a red flag goes up in your head or in your mind where you think, oh, something's not right. Something just is out of whack. How do you know that? Okay, what happens in your life? So as we're talking through this, I want you to start. You can certainly feel free to tell me in the chat box too, or if you want to take a seat, I'd love to talk to you in person. How do you know when something's not right? How do you know when you're out of balance? What are those signals? You have some weaknesses. Well, yeah, we all do have strengths and weaknesses. And that's sometimes knowing what those weaknesses are is really important because we can compensate for them for sure. So how to have work-life balance. First of all, find out to yourself, what does it mean to you? What does that look like? When you think of yourself having a balanced life, what vision do you have for yourself? And why is it important to you? Okay. People talk about it and it feels like it's a fairy tale for a lot of people, but why is it important to you? Like really think about that. Why is this something to even pursue? Why does this topic even sound interesting enough to you to click on it for this blab? Now, I say that because it is something that we all kind of at our gut just know that something's not right, that there's a part of our lives, an important part of our lives that we're not paying enough attention to. And we know that, and we understand that it's time to do that, but we just don't know how. And sometimes it's kind of just in our subconscious. It's like in the back of our mind. It's not even the forefront of our mind. I want us to bring it to the forefront of our mind though, because it is important. It is very likely that there's an important part of your life that's not getting enough attention because you're out of balance, out of whack. So we're going to try to fix that today. So one of the first things that's important to know is about the whole concept of balance is that you're in a constant state of flux. When you are working towards work-life balance, this is not something that you're going to put a lot of effort into and then all of a sudden hit a point where everything's in balance and then you don't have to work at it anymore. That's not how this works this time, okay? When we talk about work-life balance, it is something that constantly has to be evaluated, and tweaks have to be made, and sometimes big changes have to be made. And the reason is because you change, okay? As you get older, I know I'm getting older, I assume you're getting older too, and as we get older, we mature, we learn things, our bodies change. So the needs that we have also change. And so we have to either start doing some things more often or maybe stop doing other things or do them less just because of the natural changes that happen as we get older and as we mature. So we change, and therefore what used to be, we used to think, oh, we had a balanced life before, and now it's not so much. And that's why, okay, we change. And so what a balanced life looks like now is very different than what it may have looked like 5 years ago because you've changed. You know, your kids have changed too. Their needs, their demands, their expectations, the amount of responsibility that they may have, that has changed as well. So that demands that you change the amount of, of attention maybe that you have to give to them. Do we think millennials abuse the work-life balance when you're allowed to work from home? Wow, that's a loaded question. I don't know. First of all, okay, so the question is, do I think that millennials abuse the work-life balance when they're allowed to work from home? I think there is an element of people of all ages who absolutely abuse it. I think, though, overall, most people don't abuse it. I don't know that they'd be working so much harder if they actually were in a workplace. I mean, as long as they're meeting the expectations of their job, I think it's tough to say that they're abusing that responsibility or that privilege of working at home. So I think it's tough. It might be easy to look from the outside and say, wow, they're not working real hard, so it looks like they're abusing it. I don't know. If they're meeting the expectations of their job, then they probably aren't abusing it. I would argue, because I work with people in a lot of different situations, that are people who have a job in a workplace, they go to the job, and I don't know that they're working at their highest potential, So I think that there are some people who abuse even just having a job at all and getting paid, and they kind of slide through some days not bringing their best, and they can do that because they can kind of hide and still get paid the same amount of money. Should a single person be able to have the same work from home ability as one with kids? Oh, yeah, sure. Why not? Why not? This is not about, social standing. This is about also not necessarily just working from home. This is about having balance, whatever that means to you. So this brings up another really important issue when it comes to balance, which is that, oh yeah, Maria said, should some people go to the office and play solitaire? That's kind of my point. So I don't know that, yes, people abuse a lot of things, and it's not just the work at home lifestyle that they abuse. So, and I can't speak to millennials if they're more likely to abuse that lifestyle. I actually don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, if millennials specifically, if that's an issue. So I hope that helps you think about the question a little bit more. I don't know if that answers it fully, but let's see. The other thing so when you think about balance is that it is something that you're constantly going to have to be adjusting. So this is the way that if you work really hard to get kind of things in balance right now, you can pretty much assume that a year from now, you're going to have to tweak something because everybody's going to be different around you. Even people in your workplace, they will have changed as people. And so your interactions with them change. Just everybody changes. And so balance, this whole idea of what you need to do in order to maintain a balanced lifestyle, will always be in flux. Okay, so it's just something you always pay attention to. The other thing is that before we even start talking about the 4 tips on how to have a more balanced lifestyle, it's really important. This is extremely important. Don't ever, ever, ever compare yourself to somebody else. So what is a huge mistake is to look at Susie Q or Johnny B down the street and say, oh gosh, they, are pulling in $200,000 a year salaries, and they have, super deluxe cars, and their children are perfect, and they all getting straight A's and scholarships everywhere. And they both run triathletes, they're both triathletes, and, they may in fact do that. And so what's a real big problem is for you to look at that and think that that's the epitome or your personal ideal of a work-life balance, because that is not true. You should never, ever compare your inside, what's going on with you, with someone else's outside. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. You only see what people want you to see or what they intend for you to see. So it's extremely important that when you start thinking about your own personal issues with having work-life balance, that they are your issues. Please do never compare yourself to somebody else and think, oh, I want to have what they're having. I want to replicate my life to look just like theirs. That is a huge mistake, okay? Everyone brings their own unique challenges, their own unique histories to the present moment in time, their own unique current circumstances too. So it's really important that you never compare yourself with somebody else and think, oh, I want their lifestyle because it looks so perfect, it looks so balanced. That's a huge, huge mistake. Corporations treat a single man. Well, you're asking a lot of questions about corporations. Do I think corporations treat a single man equal to a woman with a kid? Does my dog with hip issues equal a kid with sniffles? Do they treat a single man? I think that's a broad question. So I think there might be a tendency to treat a woman with children differently, yes, than a single man with dog with hip issues. I do, probably. I don't know if that really does happen or how often that really does happen. They may give more allowances to a woman with a child who is sick all the time, a single mom, but they may not like that they have to. So that would change how they feel about that person too, So they may treat them differently, but it also affects, possibly how they view that person, how that person might be seen as an integral or maybe not so integral part of the workplace. That's a tricky issue for sure. You can't control your heart. That's right. Compared to other people. Don't ever, ever, ever compare yourself to somebody else. It's not a good idea, especially when you're thinking about balance, okay? Because usually when we're talking about balance, what we're talking about is trying to balance self-care with care of other people with our work environment, whatever that is. Those 3 things, okay? So, and we all have different styles of how all of those things happen. So don't compare yourself to other people. That's really important. Okay. Your balance, your level of, where everything is a very unique experience. It's not like anybody else's. So just, be okay with that. That's fine, right? So you may look at someone and say, gosh, I'd like to be a triathlete as well. And if that's important to you, then pursue it, but don't try to live their lifestyle or try to pattern your lifestyle after Susie Q or Johnny B down the street. People do compare themselves to famous people all the time, and that's a huge problem. They shouldn't do it. You tell them to come watch this so I can tell them don't do that. Okay. All right, so here are the 4 tips. Here's what you need to do in order to have a more balanced lifestyle. Now, I want to warn you to begin with, these are not necessarily things that you're going to be doing in 5 minutes. Okay, so none of these tips are things that you're just going to knock off really, really quickly. These are things that you're going to have to work on and really think about for some time, and then make some substantive changes to your schedule. So I'm going to warn you about that now. None of this is quick and dirty stuff where you just do this in 5 minutes and all of a sudden you have a perfectly balanced lifestyle. It doesn't work like that. All right. The first thing that you need to do is get really clear on your priorities. Okay, get very clear on your priorities. Now that may sound obvious, but the reality is that most people, if you're feeling like you're not quite balanced, that there's glaring parts of your life that are not getting enough attention and you want to give them more attention, then probably one of the primary issues is that you are paying too much attention to other things that are not a priority. And you're probably doing it out of habit. what happens is you just start to do things kind of unconsciously or habitually because you've done them your whole life. So you keep doing them and you don't ever question, why do I keep volunteering to be on this club? Or why do I keep volunteering to, make cupcakes every week for my kids' kindergarten party? You don't question why you do it. You just do it all the time because it's just what you do. It's like it's your habit. And when in reality, all of those things, all that time that you're devoting to these clubs or maybe to service in your children's classrooms, not that those are not worthwhile uses of your time, but if something else in your life is suffering, then now might be the time to pull back on those other tasks and activities that don't serve your highest priorities. And this is a tough one because most people don't want to be told, hey, you really shouldn't be on 12 different boards of directors. You really shouldn't be volunteering every single week for all 4 of your kids' classrooms because it's important to them. They feel like they have to do it. But I'm telling you, if you are sick because you have too much stress in your life or if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're overweight, if you're not eating properly, if you're not exercising well, then maybe it makes sense to take a hiatus on doing all these volunteer things to get your really important priorities straight. And then once all of that's straight, then you can start reintegrating yourself into the volunteer lifestyle that you're doing now. So this is a harsh message, quite frankly, because the reality is that a lot of people say, if you ask someone, is it one of your highest values to eat well and exercise? Is your health one of the most important aspects of your life? And most people would say, yeah, I think it's very important to eat well and exercise. My health is the most important part of my life. And then if you ask them, well, do you eat well and exercise regularly? There's this this kind of sheepish, well, maybe not, So what we say is important. And then the things that we do to act out what's really important are oftentimes not aligned. And so that can cause a sense of imbalance in you. And the best thing to do, the most important thing to do first is to get really clear and honest with yourself about what your priorities are and what your priorities are not. And remember, that can change over time. 10 years ago, it may have been an important priority for you to be on a whole bunch of boards of directors, to be volunteering with a lot of different organizations. But now 10 years later, maybe your kids are at a stage where they demand a lot more of your time, attention, and energy. And you still want to maintain these relationships with these volunteer organizations. But maybe that's the thing that has to go because your time with your children is a higher priority, not your only priority, but it's your higher priority than volunteering. Okay, so it's a good exercise to really sit down and think about what is really important to me. I mean, what is really important? And if a stranger were to look at your schedule, if they were to follow you around every day for a week, would that stranger be able to tell what's truly important to you by just watching what you do, where you choose to put your time, attention, and energy? That shows people what your true priorities are. So if someone's walking around, chasing after you, not in a creepy way, but just in our imagination, if they were following you, would they be able to tell what's really important in your life? And what they see you do, is that matching what you think is really important in your life, what your true priorities are? And I'll tell you, it's tough to acknowledge, kind of look in the mirror and say, I say one thing is important, but I don't act it out. And most of us fall into that category. So there's no shame around it. It can feel shameful, but I don't want you to feel ashamed, because remember, the theme this year is we're going to get rid of shame. We're going to get rid of guilt. We're going to get rid of self-consciousness around some of these things that that have no business, with shame. So please just don't feel ashamed about it. Just acknowledge it. This is the truth. I have priorities that are these, but the daily life, this is the stuff that I'm caught up in. And there's a mismatch. There's no intersection between those two things. Just be honest, because that's the first way that you're going to be able to start changing it, is just acknowledging what's happening. So the first tip that I'll give to you is that to be very, very clear and honest with yourself about what your true priorities are and are not. And it could, like I said, it could be that they used to be an important priority for you, and so it's difficult to let it go or to loosen it or make it lower on the priority list because it used to be higher on your priorities, but it really might be very important that you let it go, loosen it up so that you can serve your higher priorities right now. And the good news is that a lot of this stuff is temporary. It's just temporary. So you can say for the next year, you want to dedicate towards exercising and eating well to get your health under control. And then once that's under control, then you can get back to volunteering more and, doing those other things. So some of these changes, some of these alterations that you have to do in order to maintain a healthy, balanced life are temporary. You can get back to stuff when your kids are older, all that sort of stuff. But you do have to sometimes acknowledge and also grieve possibly a loss of things that you used to do all the time that maybe they're taking your valuable time, attention, energy away, and you really need to be doing other things right now. So that's your first thing, is to be very, very clear in your priorities. The second tip, and people are not going to like to hear this one too. I have a whole bunch of messages today that people aren't going to want to hear. So this is the second thing that you want to do after you're very clear in your priorities, is that you want to track your time. And this is a doozy. And this is something I have most of my clients do at some point towards the beginning of working together with a client. I'll have them track their time. And in an ideal way, in an ideal situation, you would track your time like every hour during the day. You would write down what you did during that previous hour, and to try to do that for 7 consecutive days. Now, there's only been a handful of clients who've actually done it for 7 days. Most people can only make it to 3 or 4 days before they just get really tired of the activity. And I mean, I personally have only ever maxed out at 4 days when I've done this. I can't really do it for 7 days either. It gets tedious to me. And other people are like that too, where some clients are like, oh, I'm going to do this for 7 days, and they can do it. It doesn't get tedious for them. Anyway, regardless of how long you do it for, I strongly recommend that you track your time. So just like when you're trying to lose weight or trying to, do a new diet or eating program, they'll tell you keep a food diary. They'll tell you every time you eat something, write it down. I want you to keep a time diary. So every hour, or about every hour, what you do is you write down, or if you want to keep track of it in some sort of electronic device or whatever, what did you do during that previous hour? Now, this can be a jarring exercise for a lot of people, because you might be very shocked at how much time you spend on distractions. What seems like it's just you're filling your time here and there, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, with doing an online game or checking Facebook or whatever. When you actually write down how much time you're truly doing those things, it can be shocking. So I just want to warn you about that. You might end up not being so thrilled at doing this exercise, but just don't be mad at me because I suggest it to you. That's all I ask. But I will tell you, once again, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Everybody goes through this, where you could look in black and white at what you actually are doing with your day, and you could see these big glaring gaps where you just wasted time. There's no other way to describe it. It's just wasted time. And so one of the really valuable things about this exercise, even though it's not fun to do, and I'm being honest here, it's not fun to do, is that you'll be able to see. It's like looking into a mirror. It's going to be very honest with you about where you're really putting your time. And so now you know what you're really dealing with. Now you know you probably do have the amount of time that you feel like you don't have right now in order to do some important things in your life, to have more balance, whatever that means. Whatever's missing, you probably do have time in your life to do it. You just have to create that time. You have to choose to let something go in order to inject this other new thing that's not getting enough of your time, attention, energy. And you're not really going to know where that time exists right now in your life until you take the opportunity to track your time. What are you doing right now with your every single day? And like I said, it's not a fun exercise. Very few people like doing it, but they just do it anyway. And everyone's always glad they did it. They may not like the results. Like I said, people have a lot of shame around stuff, but we're not going to be ashamed about any of this, of course. But they look at that and they think, wow, look at how much time I spent on Facebook, because it's Facebook and it's the digital games, the games that you can download on your phone or your tablet or whatever. Those are the things that eat up huge quantities of time, and it doesn't feel like it during the day because you feel like you're just doing it here and there, but it really adds up. So I strongly recommend that you do this for at least 3 days, okay, if you can tolerate it, to track your time and really see what you're doing. So to reflect back what I had said a couple of minutes ago too, a stranger should be able to look at what you do every week, for instance, or every day, and that stranger should be able to tell what's important to you, what your priorities are based on what you did, what that person saw you do. Okay. So if you're going to track your time, a stranger should be able to look at what you did with your time and be able to tell what's important to you, what's going on, right? Okay. So track your time. No one likes to hear that. But that's the second tip. All right. The third tip is, once you've gotten clear on your priorities and once you, have tracked your time, so you know what you're actually doing with your time, so you can get a better sense of how you can change things. The next tip or the next step that you could take is to do, and this is not a very eloquent name for it, but to do what I call a dump list. D-U-M-P, a dump list. And a dump list is really, really powerful. And I recommend that people do this regularly. So what that could mean every week, once a month, once a quarter, something like that. So whatever regular, the word regular means to you, however you think it would be best useful to you, but to try to do this on some sort of a regular basis. And this is where you take a piece of paper, and I do recommend for this specific exercise that you write this down, you physically with a pencil or pen and paper. Don't do this digitally. Do this with pen and paper, and take everything that's on your mind, okay? For 10 minutes, dump all of the stuff that's on your mind onto this piece of paper. And I want you to do it for 10 minutes. And the 10 minutes is actually important. I mean, it could be 8 minutes, that's fine. What people tend to do is they'll start, and they go for about a minute or maybe 2 minutes, and they get all the initial stuff that's on their brain and they get that down, and then they stop, they think they're done, but you're not done. I want you to force yourself to think about, okay, what else has been on your mind that you just can't immediately call up. Really dig down. And then usually once you force yourself to start digging down on what else is on your mind, what else is occupying you, a whole big flood of stuff will come up, and you'll start writing again. So you want to give yourself a good 10 minutes to do this, because it won't happen necessarily naturally. You have to kind of force things at a certain point along the way. This is a really powerful exercise when you're trying to figure out how to have more balance in your life and how to live out your priorities. Because once you have your dump list, you have a long list of all the stuff that you're worried about, that you have to be concerned about, that's on your mind. Going to pick up your stuff at the dry cleaners, planning your kid's birthday party, whatever all these things, they're now going to be on this list. And then the next step after you make that list is, I want you to take every item on that list and put it into one of two categories. So the first category is the tasks or things on that list that you can control. Okay? The things that are on your list that you have personal control over. That would be like going to pick stuff up at the dry cleaners or planning your child's party, things like that. And then in the second list would go all the things that you have no control over. Okay, so two lists, things that you have control over and things that you don't have any control over. Now, that list of things that you don't have control over, I want you to then just make a concerted effort as best as you can to not worry about them anymore. Okay, when you're trying to have more balance in your life and you find yourself plagued by worry and anxiety and maybe stress about stuff that you don't have any direct control over, that wastes time and energy. And, we're all busy. We have a lot of stuff that we're juggling. You don't really have a lot of leeway with wasting time and energy. So you have to be really deliberate about only choosing to be concerned with the stuff that you have direct control over. So like in my life right now, my younger son, we're doing the college search thing for him. So I find myself, my anxiety level increases a lot about wondering, where is he going to end up in school? Is he going to be okay? What if he wants to go far away and then he gets sick? Because let me tell you, my older son is at college only 45 minutes away. And this week found out he has a concussion. Well, I'm thinking to myself how wonderful it is that he's so close. We can go get him and help him manage this and all that. but if he were away, if he were 6 or 8 hours away or longer away, it would be a lot harder to get to him when there's a problem. So I think about that with my younger son. Like, what if he chooses to go far away and there's a problem? I have zero control over any of that. I mean, he's going to choose to go to school where he wants to go to school. It is his choice with certain, parameters. And, so I have to tell myself, don't worry about that. I have to let that go. Because if I allow myself to go there, I could get really wound up about stuff I have no control over. Meanwhile, I have a whole to-do list of stuff that I'm trying to get through. And if I'm sitting here fretting about what's he going to be like in college in 2 years or a year, I'm not doing the stuff that I have control over and that is actually going to move me forward, right? So being very clear on the things that you're worried about and only directing your energies to the things that you do have control over is a really powerful way to having more balance in your life, because it frees up a lot of energy for you, a lot of time that you historically may have spent on stuff that you don't have any control over. Thank you. Loud and clear, right? Loud and clear. Don't worry about stuff you don't have any control over. It's so important. Okay, so I have a couple questions here. So I'm sorry, I just noticed. Okay, week one. Okay, for tracking your time. Yeah, if you can track it for a week, that would be fabulous. Okay, I've only had maybe over the course of my coaching career, maybe only like 4 or 5 people have actually done it for a whole week, like 7 days. Most people really can only squeeze it out for 3 or 4 days and they're done. But the more data that you get, the better. So if you can do it for like a whole week, that's great, because then you get a better sense of what you're really doing with your time, attention, energy, and you can figure out, how to change that. Okay. Laziness. Work enthusiasm. Well, okay, you're asking a lot of different things. You're not getting job satisfaction. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, it sounds like. You know what? Laziness, how to avoid laziness. Well, you know what? I may do a whole show just on that, because that's something that I could talk about for a while, and it probably is a little bit beyond the scope of today's topic. So I may just write that down for something for a future show. So make sure you get on my email list. And by the way, if you're not on my email list, make sure you go to thefreedomprescription.com. My assistant Maria had put up a link. And you'll get a 43-page productivity booster and stress buster ebook for free. Just give me your email address and you'll get that 43-page book immediately sent to you. And you'll also be on my email list. And that means then that you'll get notification of all the different shows as they're coming up. I have my shows every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific time. And you'll get right in your inbox a link to the show. So you don't need to worry about missing something. And then if there's a recording of a topic that you wanted to see, but you forgot about it, you'll get an email with a link to the recording in it, so you won't have to miss anything. So make sure you go over to thefreedomprescription.com. There's the link right in the chat box, and sign up to be on my email list. Not only will you get that free book, but you'll also get notification of all these shows and the topics. So let me think on the whole laziness issue, maybe possibly make that a topic of its own. Okay, that's what we'll do. All right, so you have gotten clear on your priorities. You're honest with yourself about what's really important to you, maybe what's not important to you anymore. You've tracked your time, which is, very important. And now you've taken all the stuff that you're worried about, that you think about all the time, you dumped it on this list, and now you're going to make a concerted effort to not worry or think anymore about the stuff that you have no control over, right? So none of these things take only 5 minutes, which I mentioned a couple minutes ago, but a couple people have just jumped in. So I want to reiterate. Having life balance is not something that you can do in an instant. And it's not even something that you do one time and then you just coast. It requires constant monitoring. It requires constant tweaking, because you change, the people around you change, your circumstances change, things change, your body changes. So that what you need to do in order to keep yourself balanced is necessarily going to change along with all of those conditions. So it's something that you have to be constantly aware of, okay? And make efforts to change as you go along, because your priorities change as you get older and as things move along. And therefore, what you do with your time, attention, and energy every single day is going to change. All right. So all these require constant adjustment. All right. The last tip. And so now you have all of this data, you have all this information, you have all of this self-reflection, and it's given you a very clear idea of what's missing in your life that is really important for you to have. and what's in your life that you probably don't need anymore because it's not serving your best and highest priorities. And so you've made efforts to release those things that are no longer important to you, even if you've done them for a long time. Okay. Remember, that's tough. And it is tough to let go of stuff that you've done for a long time. But if it's not serving your priorities, your highest priorities, and if other things in your life are suffering, then it really is a good idea to let those things go. Okay. So the last tip is, now what you want to do is you want to develop your new lifestyle structure, right? You want to develop and map out, what does your new lifestyle look like? What do you want to do every single day so that every day, every week, every month reflects a balanced lifestyle, so that you are doing the things that matter the most to you, that are going to make the biggest impact in your work and in your life. So now, for what this looks like is going to vary dramatically from person to person. I hesitate to use the word schedule because some people don't like that word. And actually, that saying the word schedule, to have an ideal schedule, is a little bit probably more constraining than I want you to think about this. It is more about a general structure or a general lifestyle. Kind of think about guidelines that help you figure out every day, are you going to do this or are you going to do this other task? Okay. So for me, it really does help for me to have a schedule. Like, I exercise on these days. These are the sorts of foods I eat, that sort of thing. This is our homeschool time. This is my client time. This is my marketing time. Like I have that kind of a schedule because that's how I work best. And I know that about myself, but not everybody does. So if you don't work best according to a schedule, I want you to think in terms of your overall lifestyle over the course of a week. What's going to be important for you to make sure that you're doing every single week? Exercising 4 times over the course of that week. And what type of exercise does that look like? Eating healthy. What does healthy mean to you? What does that mean? Are you eating more fruits and vegetables? Are you eliminating sugar? Whatever. Are you not moving forward in your career or your business? So maybe part of this out of balance sensation that you're having is because you're perhaps stagnating, and just kind of not moving forward in the way that you want to, or that you thought that you would be at this point. So are there things that you need to let go of maybe in your business or your career in order to free up some energy for you to move forward? And what are those specific things? When are you going to do them? How often are you going to do them? Are there any resources that are required in order for you to accomplish those things? Are you missing training? Is there some sort of education that you need in order to make that happen? Is there some sort of equipment that you need in order to move forward or whatever? So really get very clear on what your day, your week, your month, a balanced lifestyle looks like. Okay. Have a vision for it, write it down or draw it out, whatever you need to do. So here's perhaps the most important, thing to remember in all of this. And it's a lesson that I learned several years ago. I guess I was doing a detox, a 21-day detox. It was particularly challenging. The first time I did it, it was low. It was tough. I've done it several times since then. It always gets easier. But one of the important lessons that I learned when I did this detox was that achieving any goal, no matter what it is, it's not so much a matter of what you say yes to. Okay. It's not so much a matter of, okay, well, I'm going to say yes to exercise on a regular basis, or I'm going to say yes to marketing, doing more marketing activities every single day, do 15 minutes more marketing every single day for my business. And you're going to do that. And you do that, you commit to that. That's important. And it's going to help you reach your goal. But just as important as what you say yes to is what you choose to say no to in order to prioritize something else. So when I was on this, doing this detox for the first time, it became abundantly clear that I could eat all the fruits and vegetables and good foods in the world. But if I was still eating a handful of jelly beans a couple times a day, then that's a problem. So I learned that I actually eat generally well in one way, one sense of the concept of eating well, but I really undermine my progress a lot by eating too much other stuff that's not good. So I learned that I have to say no to certain things, and that's really powerful for me to help me achieve certain goals. So anyway, it's that way with just about every area in your life. If you're trying to have more balanced life and there's something that's you don't have enough of in your life, it's not going to be sufficient for you to do more of that. You're probably going to have to do less of something else in order to free up enough time, attention, energy to do more of this missing thing, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So that's hard. That's hard, especially if it's something that you just do habitually, if it's something that you've been doing for a long time, like in the case, if you just volunteer all the time, it's your habit. Somebody asks for a volunteer, your hand goes up, I'm there, I'll do this. And that's just what you do. That's in your nature. But if that's in your nature and there's something else that's really suffering in your life, but you're spending all this time over here doing this volunteer work, it really comes down to what are you going to choose to say no to so that you can say yes to these more important things. And that's the crux of balance, is figuring out the answer to that question. And all of these exercises, all these tips I gave you kind of revolve around that. Like you can track your time and you can say, oh gosh, here are all the things I say yes to. I wonder what I should start saying no to. And so I can do other things. So it might be, maybe not as much time with Facebook. When you track your time, you'll figure that out. Where are you maybe wasting time? Or versus, by the way, you may have a legitimate time in your schedule where you need some downtime. Everybody needs some disconnect times. It's not a matter of, being insane about what you do every single day, because we all need some disconnect time. But then there's, but that's a balance, right? You don't need like too much of it. And that's where you have to be careful. It's the same with being, really clear in your priorities. There are things that could be really important to you, but that you just don't have time to do right now. Maybe a year from now, you will have time. And maybe 2 years ago, you used to have time. But right now, given the circumstances, you actually don't have time. And you may be disappointed about that. It may be a loss for you, but it also might be true that now's not a good time for you to do that anymore. So you have to be honest with yourself all along the way, figuring out what you're going to say yes to and what you're going to say no to in order to have this balance that you want and that you probably really need in your life. Okay. All right. What questions do you all have for me, or what comments? I know you've been, okay, so there is no time to do better exercise. Yeah, it can be really hard. So there are, and I should give a disclaimer here. I have worked with people and I've known people in my private life who genuinely have such extreme circumstances that they really don't have time to have more balance, more self-care, or attending to building a business or something like that. So I'm thinking about if you have an illness, if you have cancer or you're dealing with some sort of major illness, then that's a big deal. Okay. So all of these rules, not that they can't apply to you, but like a lot of stuff flies out the window when you have extreme circumstances. If you are caring for a medically ill child, all this stuff goes out the window. Like that is your top priority. And you should never feel guilty about not being able to do other stuff, because that is just going to zap so much time, attention, energy from you of necessity. Okay. So you can't, there's a part of you that's going to probably yearn to have more balance and more ability for you to take care of yourself. But quite frankly, now might not be the time in your life where that's realistic for you to give enough time that you'd like to, at least to taking care of yourself. Because if you have a medically ill child, they just demand a lot of you. And that's the lifestyle. Now, hopefully you have people, good support system around you that can help you help you have moments where you can take care of yourself or give you, relieve you a little bit. And it's important to ask for what you need in those extreme circumstances. But I think the concept of balance just has to be thrown out the window in those extreme circumstances. So let's put those as the exception rather than the rule, because most of us don't fall into that situation. Most of us are just ordinary people trying to get along, saying yes to stuff that we really shouldn't be saying yes to because it's actually not serving our best and highest purposes and priorities. And we're saying, we're just jamming our time with stuff that just doesn't matter. So, okay, it works best for you to have items on your list that are ideal for low energy days. Many of your activities require focus and energy, so you need to segment. Oh, you know what? I love that concept. That's great. This whole idea of having a low energy day. So it sounds like, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, that you have kind of when you just wake up and where you just know you're not at your best for whatever reason, that there are just certain things that that are better for you to do on those days than try to force yourself through with, to do other things that demand more focus, more energy, much more attention when you're just not feeling it, when it's not going to happen. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thanks for that tip. That is important for balance, is to be realistic. And we kind of talked about that too with the whole idea on Monday. Yeah, well, our last show on Monday was about what to do when you wake up and you're in a funk and you're feeling blah, you're feeling low energy. How do you manage that? And that's a great strategy, but it's also good for life balance, just generally for balance in general, to have, to know that you're still moving forward, you're still honoring your priorities, but just in a different way on those lower energy days. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's great. That's great. What else? What other questions or suggestions do people have? This is a big issue for a lot of people. And while you're thinking about those questions, I want to remind you that Monday was the rescheduled. We're going to be talking about extremely serious topic, surviving the stress of tough economic times. And so if you know someone or you are someone who is just dealing with a lot of stress, and it can be related to money, finances, or not. So a lot of the strategies that I'm going to talk about on Monday have to do with managing stress in general, not just money stress, but I am going to focus in on financial stress because I'm hearing a lot about that lately. And so if I'm hearing, the chatter out there, then I know it's something that people need to hear about. It's extremely important. I urge you, if you get on my email list, so you know when that show is coming up, and you can forward that link to anyone in your life who you think might need to hear this information. Because stress is making us sick. And it was something we can manage with some decent strategies. It's going to involve some balance, so balancing things in your life, which is kind of why I wanted to talk about that today before I talk about the stress management on Monday, because they kind of go hand in hand. But it really is an extremely important topic, a very serious topic, but a crucial one that a lot of people need to hear about. So if you know of anyone who needs that information or that kind of support, please, if you could forward them that email, or if you're watching, you could let them know that you're watching it, and so that they can watch in too. Send them the link. That would be fabulous. When you're alone, you're getting more stressed. Yeah, sometimes people do get very stressed when they're alone. Yeah. So you might want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with people as much as possible. But sometimes having alone time is good. Like for me, being alone is not stressful. It's a personality issue as well. I'm kind of an introvert. When I'm alone, that's not such a bad thing for me. But other people get antsy, they get anxious, they get wound up when they're alone. They find it to be stressful. Yeah. All right. What else? We have a couple more minutes. Yeah. Getting bored with your life. That does happen. So go out and do something fun. Go out and do something exciting that's good for you. All right. Okay. I'll give another 10 seconds or so if we don't hear any more, because I've been chatting for a long time, but because there's a lot of stuff to talk about with this particular issue. So I hope, as always, this was helpful for you. I'm Dr. Anita. I am an executive coach, a licensed psychologist, and my mission is to give you the information and support you need so that you can move onward and upward and forward with your most important goals and objectives. So please feel free to spread the word about my show. I want to reach as many people as possible with this really important information, especially about Monday's show, because that's about stress. And stress, unmanaged stress, causes major problems: depression, pain, anxiety, panic attacks, just all kinds of not so great stuff, sickness, all kinds of sickness. So that's a really valuable show to watch, because I'm going to give a lot of practical tips on how to manage it. So. All right. Well, thank you so much all for your kind attention. I appreciate all the comments and the questions. And I look forward to seeing you again on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Not quite sure what time that is in Europe, parts of Europe, or even actually in South America. Looks like some people are kind of all over the place. So I don't know. I'm not great with international time zones. So it was wonderful to see you all, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday. Bye.